WP-Get web dev tutorials for all user levels. Okay, so last video on this, I promise. Still playing around with loading and checking for JavaScript, and I'm pretty much where I'm going to sit with all this going forward. So I wanted to show a quick example here where I've just got a really basic page and I wanted to play around with a bit of gsap and find out how that works. That's something I haven't played with before. It's got a really simple hero up here. If I use my mouse, the background SVG rotates off to the side and becomes more opaque. And I've got some text coming in from the left here, which is blurred. And then at the end point, it's opaque. And sorry, it's not blurred. And it's tilted. So just a really simple thing, not something I'd actually use live, but just playing with gsap. Now, one of the things I don't want to do is add bloat to my web page or website. So typically you'd use a plugin or you'd write some code in a functions.php or a code snippet, and you'd enqueue all of the stuff that you want. So in this case, I need Scrolltrigger and I need gsap. I thought I don't really want to do that because then it's going to load on every single page, adding to that, unless I use something like perf matters or something else to strip out those JavaScript files or any dependencies that I only need for that one page. And with WordPress, you can enqueue scripts based on pages. You can write code to go if it's this page ID or that page ID or this page type or post type. I thought there's got to be a much easier way to do this. So what I've created is a way of doing this. And all we have to do is enqueue one JavaScript, and it's only 2K. It's a tiny little JavaScript, which I've created, and I've put up on a Bunny CDN. And I'm just going to quickly head over to what that code actually is. And I went through this in my last video of the dependency check. But what I've added to this is this loading of JavaScript dynamically. So I've got a function here where we look for a window object to test, a URL to the JavaScript, and an optional callback. What I'm doing first here is if the window already has the object on there, so for example, if we loaded gsap, window.gsap would already exist. So if that exists, or we've already requested that, so if we do a quick consecutive check to load the same thing, it's just going to return. It's not going to reload it again. So what this does, it actually adds a script tag to the end of the body and puts the URL on that so that it loads it when you need it. The rest of this dependency check is just exactly the same as my previous video. So we don't need to go through that. All right, so all I'm doing is loading my loader in my code snippet, functions PHP, wherever you want to put that. So on the page itself, what I've done here is I've now got an extra function that I'm extracting from my object that I've put on the DOM. So back over to here, what that's doing is it puts a WPG JS loader object on the DOM and exposes these functions and globals. So that's all that is. Now, in this editor, Elementor editor, every time you press a key, so every time you press a key up, it runs the script. And what I found is when I was playing around with gsap, it just became really, really sluggish and boggy. So there might be a better way around this. I haven't actually figured another way to do this. So I thought I'd just put it in a DOM content loaded, which means I'm not going to see things happening in the editor, but it will work. So that's just so that it's only going to run once. Now, all I'm doing here is calling my load.js. I'm saying I'm looking on the window object for gsap, and here is the URL to the CDN for that. And I'm going to load Scrolltrigger, and here's the URL for that. So what this will do is that if the gsap, in this case, is already loaded, it just returns true. If Scrolltrigger is already loaded, it just returns true. If they're not loaded, it adds a script tag with the URL to load it. So it's loading it dynamically. So that's pretty much the only change to my previous video. So this could be, all of this could be in another object. So I could create a, let's go here, could create, say at the end of the document, I could create another HTML, put it here. So I'm going to just grab all that. Okay, so I'm going to put all of that in there. I'm going to take out my listener there, take out my animations here. Okay, call this my loader. Come back to my gsap code. And let's take all of that out, so we don't need any of that. Window animations, get out. Theoretically, if I've copied the right code, this should still work. Let me just try that. Nope, I've got an error somewhere. Okay. Okay, so now it's working. All right, so what I've just demonstrated there is that I've taken the gsap code, and all it is it's waiting for a window event to say that either the dependencies failed to load or they have loaded, and we're going to run this gsap. Okay, that's pretty much all that is. Now down here we've got the JS loader, but all that's doing is when the DOM content's loaded, it adds these two script tags to load gsap and Scrolltrigger, and then it waits for the dependencies. So if I, for example, just put in here ABC, so I'm going to look for dependency ABC to load. What I'm going to see now is it keeps checking, gets 1.6 seconds, and then comes up with an error saying missing dependencies. So that was this loader here. gsap code. You can actually take that out. You only want that to run once. Let's stick that here. Same thing. Okay, checking for dependencies, missing dependency. Okay, so this here is outputting the error saying there's a missing dependency because this check here failed to load. Now, the cool thing of doing it this way is that this one HTML box here that's got this loader in it will trigger this success method here, the success event here. Whenever it succeeds, it will actually trigger that everywhere. So I can actually have, let's say I've got something in this box over here, and I want to put a separate HTML, and we'll call that another gsap. Okay, why you do that, I don't know, but let's say we do. So we put a script there, and if I come back to my gsap code here, I could actually add that there. And I can put some gsap code. I can put some gsap code in here as well. So we can separate it out like this. gsap might be for whatever's in that container. That gsap might be for whatever's in that container. We've only got one loader. one loader making sure we've got gsap loaded, Scrolltrigger loaded, and then firing this event. So the success event here will fire on the window event, which will run this gsap, which will also run this gsap. So we only have to do it the once. So it's a really easy way of making sure everything's loaded and not duplicating what you're doing. And the JavaScript is only going to be loaded on the page where you've told it to load. So I think it's a really interesting way of doing it, which means it's not something that you have to then go through and for optimization and remove. This could be for any library you like. It doesn't have to be gsap. You could use it for things like splittingjs if you wanted to load splittingjs and split words by characters or lines or anything that you want to use. There's that threejs if you want to do 3D stuff. You can load it here rather than from WordPress, and then that's only going to load when it's needed. So yeah, I think it's a cool way of doing it. It's probably how I'm going to continue to do things for now. So I'm not going to redo a tutorial with all this code. All I'll do is show you this URL here. So if you want to use the script, all you have to do is enqueue that URL. If you want to see the unminified code, just take out the min and you can see the unminified code. I think it's unminified's 4K, minified's 2K. So it's only very tiny, so it doesn't really matter. But that's pretty much where you get it from. Once you've got this JS loader, it's just a matter of using the loader down here by telling it to load some JavaScripts and then do a dependency check for these objects that should be on the window object, and only throw or only dispatch a success event if these have loaded, or if it's not within a given time. I've got it at 1.6 seconds. Then fail, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so hopefully that's something that you can use.